and author X is bright, verdant grass sways peacefully. Now, these sentences seem very, very different. And we have this new sentence in the middle that's colorful, verdant dreams sleep furiously. Now, that sentence seems at first to be similar to the top sentence because it has many more words in common, but the operative word here is verdant, which is a very descriptive word. There's a lot of possible synonyms for verdant, and yet the author chose that one. So in this scenario, the system would actually correctly identify the unknown author as being author X based on this unique word choice. So the idea of this scenario is to find the unique words that the author used and make a determination of the author through that. And we had anywhere from 88 to 99% accuracy, depending on how many authors we had in the system. So here's the first round of results. This is just the validation experiment, the verification experiment, looking at the base accuracy of all these methods. The black line you'll see is random chance. So if you were just to randomly pick what author of a document you think it was, that is the accuracy you'd get. And as you see, all the methods are much higher than that. They're anywhere from 75 to almost 100% accurate in determining the correct author. Now, the interesting thing comes in when we look at what happens when we introduce the attack data. So this next result is what happens when the obfuscation data is added into it. This is when people will deliberately try and hide their writing style, not imitating a specific author, but just try and hide their own writing style without any direction. And we find that the accuracy of all the methods drop simply to random chance. What's even more interesting is that when we throw in the imitation attack data and apply that, we see the accuracy drops almost to 0. So in all these cases where the people were trying to actively imitate Cormac-McCarthy, the accuracy of all the stylometry systems, which had original accuracies of 80 to 100%, dropped to almost 0, which is a quite significant result. And finally, when we look at the success rate in people actually being able to imitate Cormac-McCarthy, we find that people were very successful in being able to imitate him. So all those passages about waking up in the morning and in these really gloomy ways, I guess these systems thought were Cormac-McCarthy, with not quite as high as the original base accuracy, which you can see highlighted in the back, but still significantly higher than random chance. So there's some questions that come with these results. The first is, why are some authors more susceptible to attack? One thing that we found when we were performing these exercises is that when certain authors appeared in the random group for a certain test run, is that some authors were very susceptible to being the target of attacks, even the obfuscation attacks. So author A, for example, maybe whenever author A was in a group, it was very likely that people's obfuscation attacks would be targeted to that author A. Why exactly this is, we're not totally sure. We think that maybe author A could have some sort of generic writing style, or maybe a writing style that's hard to pin down, so it's easy for other people to get lost in the mix and seem like they're author A. But it's still an interesting result. Why did some methods perform better than others? You'll see here that it was much easier to imitate Cormac-McCarthy if you're using the synonym-based method. Now, I want to stress that the point of this experiment was not just to compare different methods of stylometry, but it is useful to look at how different methods perform under different attacks. So it would make sense in some ways that the synonym method was easier to fool because Cormac-McCarthy tended to pick very distinct words, distinct vocabulary words. And if you just picked a bunch of those words, it'd be easier to trick that system into thinking you are, in fact, Cormac-McCarthy. Oops. Would these results hold up in a stricter domain? So when we took the when we took the data from the participants of the study, we asked them to just submit any writing they had from a formal source because we wanted to eliminate slang, we wanted to eliminate casual conversation, but we didn't give them a specific domain. We didn't say, you have to submit history papers, or you have to submit papers about, a specific technical area. And we wonder if these results would hold up in a stricter domain where there's less room for variation in the actual original writing samples. We think this should still be studied. What if participants were skilled in linguistics or stylometry? Remember, these participants had no skill at all or no formal training at all in linguistics or stylometry. One could expect that if they did, they might be able to perform even better attacks against the stylometric systems. And what features or methods could offer some resistance to these attacks? All the methods that we looked at failed in the face of these attack passages, but it is quite possible that there are other methods out there that would have been more resistant to them, and we think it's worth our research to find out what methods of those might be. A common suggestion that we've received in talking about this research is, well, wouldn't another way to attack stylometry be to just pass a passage through a translator like Google Translator, translate it from one language and back, and that would probably get rid of a lot of the nuances of the language. So we did a little bit of experiment before this talk to see if that was true. We took 5 test subjects with an initial base accuracy of around 88 to 98%. We took a single passage from each of these subjects. We did one translation where we translated it to German and back, and another translation where we translated it from Japanese and back, and found that in all of the situations, it did not have any effect in hiding the author's writing style. I don't have the measurements that come with it, which are kind of a lot of numbers just to throw up on the board here, also show that the average syllable count, the average sentence length, all these things didn't really change when you translate it to one language and back. You could potentially try other things where you translate from, maybe translate it to German, then translate it to Japanese, then translate it back to English. But we thought this was enough to show that, not that definitively translation attacks could have no effect on it, but that you couldn't guarantee that a translation attack would in fact hide your writing style. So how can we use these attacks to improve privacy? Well, for now, if you want to publish a document anonymously, there are a few things you can do. First thing is to remember that while these methods failed, others might not. So just because you're able to fool some of these methods doesn't mean that you've totally anonymized your writing style and there's no way that anyone can figure out who you are. But the best thing you could do is try and imitate someone else, because we found that when people had some structure of a writing style to look at, to try and imitate, they did a much better job at hiding their own writing style. And secondly, write less. If you write less, there's less feature space, there's less text from which you can draw features out of the text, and it's then easier to anonymize your writing style and to be hidden. But what do we need? Well, we would like to see a tool that will assist in anonymizing writing styles, a tool that people can use to say, I want to publish this document anonymously. How anonymous is my writing style right now? And that is our next step, and that's what we are currently working on right now. So what would one of these tools need? First of all, we need a variety of methods and features, and the ability to constantly add new methods and features into it to test for authorship recognition on a variety of levels. We would need a large corpus of existing authors, so you can test your writing against a very large set of data. It should be AI assisted. We believe that you would need some sort of human oversight to preserve the content. We're not going to make some sort of software where you click a button and it totally anonymizes your writing style, but it still maintains a coherent, well-written passage. That's a natural language processing complete problem, and that's not something that we can tackle, or that arguably that anyone can tackle at the moment. But if you have something that says, hey, this paragraph here, this thing here is particularly susceptible to synonym analysis, particularly susceptible to word count analysis, maybe you should change that there. That is the goal that we were looking to achieve. It should be open source. We want the community to be involved and to be able to contribute to this project. And it should have some sort of non-stylometry features as well, such as contextual identifiers like time and content and names, places, things like that. So I mentioned the idea of having a large corpus, a large amount of material which to test. This is the current stage that the project is in right now. And this is where we kind of need your help. We are looking to establish a large database of sample attack passages and sample writing and untampered writing samples that can be used, both in this project and by other researchers to study adversarial stylometry. We recently got institutional review board approval for this study, which is something that you have to get in the United States if you're going to do some sort of public study. And the current participation form is up at dragonauth.com. You can check it out. Please tell your friends, all of that. If you want to participate, the mandatory element of your participation is submitting 6,000 words of untampered writing.